What's up, world? It is your boy, Mike Muse. The moment has come. This is a childhood dream of mine. This is literally a pinch me moment. I remember watching Gladiator. I was probably on Christmas break from the University of Michigan, my senior year. And I remember watching it on VHS at my sister's house in Florida with my entire family. She and I loved it so much that we made the family come back and sit around the TV in the living room, and we played it back again. So we took 6 hours out of our day to watch this film. And to this day, Gladiator remains one of my top 5 films of all time. And then I had the pleasure and the privilege for the second time to be in conversation with my favorite actor of all time. He was gracious and humble with his presence and allowed me to be in conversation with him for Othello, to which SiriusXM is playing it on loop right now. Denzel Washington has been a staple of my life. Film for me got me interested in this intersectionality of politics and pop culture. Film holds a mirror up to society and asks us who we are as people. And Denzel has done that with all of his characters and roles that he has had. So to be able to sit at this intersection with his incredible cast of Gladiator II and then with the incredible Denzel Washington is just a pinch me moment that I won't probably be able to get over for a while. Could not sleep last night, and I wore my Sunday best. So make my mama proud, not embarrass the family. So without further ado, the cast of Gladiator, Paul, Mescal, Connie Nielsen, Fred Hechinger, and of course Denzel Washington.
What an intro.
I'm so happy that you guys are here, and thank you for making this incredible film, Enter the Return. I love the Greco-Roman time period. It's one of my favorite periods of history. The Greco-Roman time period is the formation of our democracy, formation of religion, modern sports, and I think Gladiator really encompasses that really well. So Connie, I want to start with you and just say welcome back to Rome.
Well, thank you so much.
Yeah, you're one of the returning cast members, one of 2 returning cast members from Gladiator II. How does it feel to be back?
It's been kind of surreal and fantastic and just amazing, really. Mm-hmm. Wonderful.
I think there's something about this time period to which Gladiator 2 has come back. When you think about democracy, right? Think about what's happening currently in the geopolitical space. I'm not going to go specific about politics, but I couldn't help but thinking about democracy this entire time. Paul, later in the film, you do ask a question about power, but really, Connie, I want to lean into you because I really feel like the thesis of this film is about, quote, should an empire be led by a guiding ideal, or is it merely a vessel for the strong to strike down the weak? Can you talk to me a little bit about the thesis, if that is the thesis of this film, and what are your thoughts on that as a returning cast member?
Well, I think, Ridley, when he was writing the script together with the writers, I think he had, a lot of thoughts about democracy in general. I think that we all have sort of been celebrating democracy and the power of democracy since, the end of the Second World War. And we've fought like a Cold War for that very same reason. And I think that Ridley, who was sent away as a child, he told from the stage in London a few weeks ago, during the Blitz, he was sent away on a train with a little sort of lapel like thing and like stuck to with his name and away from his parents. And it really like remained with him. He understood that, they were under attack and that he was unsafe. And I think that he has definitely treated these subjects throughout his career. In this film, it definitely is important to him. Mm-hmm. I think that people question, how power is wielded.
Yeah, I think it's also, too, a question for your character, Lucilla, that you play. A scene that really stood out to me was with you and the amazing Pedro Pascal, who is not here today. But I really think about this intersectionality of religion. Religion has been the reason for war. Democracy has been the reason for war. And Pedro, when you guys had the opening scene, there's an exchange where he says, I would not waste another generation of men for their vanity. But then you go on to say, what is a dream of Rome? What did Lucilla mean by what is a dream of Rome?
She's referring to not just the sort of like values of her father, but like strictly Roman values, like these ideas that they had about what was a citizen, and the fact that every citizen in Rome had representation at the Senate. Now, all of that sort of receded during the Empire, and so for Lucilla, democracy, a return to the republic, or rather a new kind of republic, where every citizen, because it was always discussed who was in fact a citizen, not unlike America, they had that discussion back then, and we still do.
Yeah.
Who do we allow to participate in power, and how well?
And particularly when you think about taking over other countries, right? The colonization, right? In this ecosystem that really got created, you see a melting pot of cultures and identities that come to play, which is so current to where we are right now. But Paul, I want to lead to you because Connie and her character Lucilla is asking about the question of who is a citizen, how do you belong, and the power of the people. But you didn't feel that as Lucius in your character.
No, if anything, he's just trying to tear the establishment down, but actually not for kind of political reasons. It's personal reasons. It's the fact that Rome, to Lucius, represents everything that has taken his wife away from him. It is the reason that he doesn't feel connected to his mother anymore. So it's an exciting thing to get to exercise that anger against an establishment in film,
Can people separate their personal agenda in order for the greater good of democracy? Because that seems to be the question that Lucius is asking himself.
I think he attempts it. I think he attempts it up until the point that there's a certain responsibility thrust into his character's journey. I think, of course, it depends on the context, but I think where there's conscience, there comes a responsibility, right? And I think that's what the film is saying with Lucius.
Mm-hmm. Denzel, I come to you. One, I just want to give you your flowers. I can't stop giving you flowers, but as I was watching this film with you, the takeaway I had after watching it was like, my God, this man continuously evolves. Just when you think you can get no greater as an actor.
Character or me?
You,
okay.
as an actor, you do. So thank you for what you brought to this role. But to this conversation that we're having, I want to bring you into it because there's a line in there that really struck me. It actually clapped at the screening. Your character, you say, I went from being owned by an emperor, now I run an empire. Can you talk to me about the fundamentals of that statement and what your character is trying to describe in that moment?
He's just selfish and egotistical, and he wants to dominate. An empire is not big enough for him. He wants to dominate anything and anyone around him, and he'll do anything to anyone to get what he wants.
Mm-hmm. I feel like this movie is a tale of two, right? There's always a tale of two sides to every coin when it comes to that. I think about the idea of, in a movie previously with Othello, you were being manipulated, your character, but in this one, you're doing the manipulation, right? How does the two sides of, how does that inform you, right, in terms of how you approach this character about manipulating?
I don't think about that.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think, am I being manipulated? And I don't think Othello is being manipulated
mm-hmm.
either. But I don't think about it that way. That suggests a path. And I don't have a path when I start a film. Mm-hmm. I build a character from the inside out, and then I step into his shoes and see what the circumstances are. Mm-hmm. I don't assume anything,
mm-hmm.
Even if the script says I'm going to kill everybody, doesn't mean I'm a killer. That's not the way I approach it. I might ask myself why, what happened to him or her to make them that way, but I don't say this person is that or I'm this, because then I haven't left room for the work to evolve, the discoveries to happen.
I like where you just went just now. It made me think about, you asked a question of why are you killing, right? So there is a scene, and I'm not going to do any spoiler alerts, where you do decide to make that conscious decision to do that. What was it about that moment where you felt the need that action of killing needed to happen?
like I said, he'll do anything. Kill, love, cheat, steal. You know, it's just another tool in his toolbox.
Wow. Free of a constitution. When you don't have a constitution, you do whatever. It's convenient in that moment.
You can do whatever when you have a constitution. More people have been killed in the name of the Constitution than probably anything else.
Very true.
Yeah.
Fred, you're shaking your head a lot.
Come on, Fred.
Yeah. What is it, what Denzel just said, that jumped out to you? Because you play one of two twin emperors who I believe embodies all some of the 7 deadly sins of flesh and ego and sex and hedonism and being drunken on power. Talk to
What's wrong with that?
Yeah. Talk to us about how Denzel, we're talking about constitution or lack of constitution, but really guided how you approach like these emperors to really show that in a human form. Your performance was brilliant too, by the way.
Thank you. I will say when you play power or when you play someone that's in a position of enormous power, even if both of these emperors, I would say, are shaking in their boots at the same time, you see the way that Ridley built that power around you. And I guess when you're having this conversation, I was thinking about how much can be done in the name of anything and how much people can step aside and kowtow to power. So you have characters who, as everyone is, and we're talking about acting out of themselves and an impossible to calculate human heart, and then the effects of that are I don't know. It was just. I guess the simplest way to say it is I would walk in there scared in that toga, and you would see the performance of power onto you from everybody else.
Wow.
And that's something that was built through the set, and I do think, I don't know, maybe that says something about.
Was that daunting? And the reason I ask that, because I've heard great leaders say before that once they assume to a position of a higher office, that the weight of that office humbles them in a certain way, right? And so I'm curious, when you stepped out, because Ridley built this incredible scale of a set, did that begin to shape and inform how you thought about that character in those scenes?
You know, everything around the set is so rich with detail, and working with this incredible group of actors gives you so much that ends up being what the story is about. That's what matters, is what's around you. And also Ridley doesn't give you any shortcut in the best way. You know, if the crowds are screaming down with the Empire, if they want to kick you out, he's not making them get quieter so you can get your line in. He's having you reckon your way in the environment and figure out a way as a performer to fight that in a much more realistic sense.
Okay, I like this. You guys are actually my co-host, because that wasn't the direction I was ready to go in just yet. But Fred, you have led me to want to talk for you for a second, Paul. I was going to talk to you about something completely different. But Fred just mentioned about the scene in the Coliseum, right, in this arena, right? So now I'm just thinking about how electric it must have been to perform that, right? How much energy had to be running through you. Because there is a moment in the Gladiator I that is so classic, where Maximus says to the crowd and looks up, "Are you not entertained?" But I feel like you had your "you're not entertained" moment after a major fight scene. You say, "Is this how Rome treats its hero?" Right? Talk to me about that moment of that statement, because I feel like that was a moment where you not only charged that scene, but then you charged the crowd, right? And then the crowd began to turn.
Yeah, well, they're both questions. It's the moment that it stops being about him, and he's asking the people, the thousands of people around him, a question. He's like, the line is this how Rome treats its heroes? And essentially, it's like, if that's how they're going to treat him, how do you think you're going to be treated just as a simple citizen? This is a celebrated Roman general, So but just to speak more broadly about what that coliseum feels like, a spiritual place, even though it's totally constructed. It's built in what, 4, 5, 6 weeks, but you're stepping into a place that means a lot to a lot of people in terms of, like, as you spoke to in your opening remarks about what that film means to you. You're suddenly being handed the mic and you're delivering a line that I like. When I read that in the script, I was like, this is one of the good ones. But your question being, what does that feel like to be within?
Yeah.
It feels special. It feels like, from a purely selfish sense, it feels like an opportunity to exercise something that I haven't got to do on screen yet. That kind of like plant your feet and just deliver. But I do think that there's a responsibility that comes with somebody handing you the microphone in that context. Yeah.
Which kind of goes back to the conversation I was having with Denzel a few minutes ago about constitutional elector of a constitution, because when you're able to wield that much power, it can become addictive, right? But I've seen some individuals in real life who have been able to amass such power, becomes addictive. Even if you're a performer on a concert stage in front of a screaming crowd of 50,000 people, you need that fix eventually every night, right? But Lucius, though, are you telling me now then he has a constitution because he chose to continuously go more inward and then more for the people of Rome?
I think he probably flips. I think he acts without constitution for the most part for the first 2 acts of the film, I would say. And then when he finds out about his bloodline, he sees the state of Rome and what Fred and Joe's characters have done to Rome, and suddenly he's got the birthright to kind of succeed them. A constitution is somewhat forced upon him, but I don't think it's fair to say that he takes that in his stride. Like, the film ends on a question where he's seeking guidance. I would describe him in the latter half of the film as somewhat of a reluctant leader, but does have a constitution. Yeah,
they say those make the best leader. Those who don't want to raise their hand. Right?
Who knows?
Those
we don't really know how far he gets with it, but
maybe
I think he probably would make a good leader. Yeah.
Well, Lucilla, we might as well stick to the everyone have this idea of constitution. I love this. Thank you, Kelly, for that word too. By the way, decades ago, my audience knows, Connie, that constitution is like my favorite thing that I love to unpack. I'm just curious, though, for you, because you say something really interesting, too, as well. And I just think as the daughter of Maximus Aurelius, this incredible emperor, there's a moment in the movie where you say you've had to, forgive me for misquoting, but essentially you've had arrows at your back ever since, trying to navigate this space, trying to keep it together. What is Lucilla's constitution in this whole space, in particular in the second iteration of Gladiator? A son comes home.
The line about a man has had a knife to my throat ever since the day my father died.
Yes. I thought it was a very powerful line.
Yeah. It reminds, I think, a lot of women about the first movie where I say I'm so tired of being strong, because I think women do see that duality. They both have to be under this sort of physical, they feel like a physical threat in life, and then at the same time, they also have to be really, really strong in order to measure up to this particular problem that women often live with. And the way, did you ask about how I felt about that line?
Yeah.
So I feel like the way Lucilla would have felt. I felt like, she's had to struggle for 20 years to figure out how to maintain this fight for this republic that she wants. She wants this dream for Rome, and it's been a heartbreak for her to watch this complete loss of the norms and the values that Rome had stood for, but also that her father had stood for. And then, she's had this heartbreak that she does not know what has happened to the son that she has tried to save by sending him away from her. And so there's this terrible, terrible sense of having to be strong throughout something that's extremely, extremely difficult. One emperor after another, either trying to imprison her, to use her, or to suppress her.
Paul, what you You came onto the screen a couple times in the beginning, but for me, I'm curious about the moment I thought that you arrived and your character Lucius arrived is when you began to speak and you read that poem. The gates of hell are open night and day, smooth the descent and easy is the way, but to return and view the cheerful skies, in this the task and mighty labor lies, which is a poem by Virgil, yeah. From the Aeneid. As one of the great Roman poets. I'm just curious about why Lucius recited that poem in that moment.
He recited the poem in an attempt to subvert the power, because Denzel's character at that moment is trying to protect Lucius by saying, "Oh, he doesn't understand English. He's from the provinces, etc." But by Lucius reciting something in English, he's letting the emperors know, I'm choosing. It's not that I don't understand the question. I'm choosing not to answer it. So instead, I'm going to recite a poem to you. But it's a political decision. It's a charged decision, and it's an exciting moment for an actor to get to play, because anything can happen in a story context from that point.
Yeah. I was doing some research on that poem last night, and I love that some of the literary context of it is about going down a bad path, and once you start going down a bad path, you can't turn back from it, right?
Yeah,
Which is a lot of the thesis of what the film is about.
Exactly. Yeah.
Denzel, your character, what stood out to me too as well is when you and Lucius, you guys began to engage in a conversation in the way that you select gladiators. And you really leaned into, I'm sorry if I misquoted, but you lean into gladiators that have rage. Why do you think that was so significant for your character to really lean into rage?
I don't think it was. I think it was another tool that he saw in him. And he's just looking for someone to use. And if a person has that anger and that rage, that's a good. He's a good candidate for usage. You know.
As I'm talking to you, thinking about the context of your character, is your character a strategist?
He's an opportunist.
Opportunist.
Yeah, I think. Yeah, I imagine he strategizes, but he's moment by moment. He's an opportunist, definitely.
Does your character have a North Star?
What do you mean?
Like, is it a goal? Is it an end goal for your character?
To dominate, to control. You know. What was that saying? A leader like a shepherd sends the fast, nimble sheep out front so that the rest will follow, not realizing they're all being led from behind. He wants to be behind, in front, on the sides, but mainly on top, looking down, pressing down.
So almost like a puppeteer.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
I'll be using that from now on. You know what he's like, really? He's like a puppeteer.
Yeah. Denzel, that would make my day if I see you use that in an interview.
Just keep listening. Well, we don't have that many more interviews to do that.
Yeah.
I'll get it in there, I promise you.
At some point in your life. Yeah. Oh my God. Mama, I made it. That's right. I love you so much, Denzel. Oh my God. And then I got that smile out of you, which leads me to my next point. I'm going to stick there with your smile because I'm a big fan of actors who can do really interesting, I'm not a thespian, so forgive me, actors, for using the wrong terminology here, but either physical acting or indirect acting, how an actor can write something with a pen, pick up a glass of water, do something with their glasses. What I found so striking, Denzel, there was a moment, the way you can tend to evolve in this character, the way you lean into it, I thought was really special, but there was a moment where you say, there was exchange between you and another character where you can tell that there was some sexual fluidity going on. But it wasn't direct. But there was an indirect moment when you said, when you're talking to, I forgot the character's name, but you say, nothing happens in Rome without your knowledge of it or unless you have tasted it. And for me, I thought that was a very sexual innuendo. But what you ended up doing in that moment was you smiled to emphasize a point where I thought a person would have winked. And so I'm really curious about your decision, how you use your smile to
You never
communicate.
decide.
Yeah.
No, you don't decide. That's bad acting.
Okay.
To come in and say, I'm going to do this. You know, the scene might be written, you walk in the room and he smiles at you and you smile back. You might walk in the room and he slaps you. So you can't prepare for what you don't know is going to happen. You can be who you are, prepare that, and have an understanding of the scene, and then that's why it's called playing. So you have to play it. You have to see, how you bounce off of each other and what comes of it.
Yeah. There's a moment.
And what the other person brings to the room. Most importantly, I would say.
Yeah.
What the other person brings, because you don't know. You don't know.
So there's a level of improvisation that happens in the moment?
It's called, in acting, I think it's called listening,
Okay.
which is very hard to do. It's very hard to listen to honestly, just like what they're doing right now.
Yeah.
So it's listening honestly, but when they say action and you're listening,
Yeah.
But listening is really simple, but it's one of the hardest things to do for an actor.
Yeah, it's hard to be an active listener. I even said it as a host. It's hard to be an active listener as a host. Like, I don't have any pre-planned
I like
questions.
that. You said an active listener. I like that.
I'm an active listener.
Yeah.
So what I have is not questions, but what I have that I wrote down. I was feverishly writing in the screening in the dark, like the quotes you guys were saying. But these aren't questions here because I want to hear exactly what you guys are saying so I can respond.
Right.
Because seriously, you guys are on a 5-week run. This is exhausting. Yeah. It's a job for you guys to do well. And I always want to make sure to make it enjoyable for you as much as I can, as I think I'm your closer, which is an honor. But Fred, I want to go to you too as well because your character has a monkey that you're around named Dondis, but your character himself is this very sporadic, almost manic, I would say, dealing with a lot of mental issues. Seemingly, has been stifled with growth because he's had so much power his entire life. He's never heard the word no. I think that does stifle growth. What was that like trying to stay in character of that manic dynamic while still having a monkey that, although I'm sure was trained, doesn't read lines, isn't listening to Ridley what it is, and how do you maintain staying in that energy of your character while working in collaboration with this monkey?
I mean,
That's a good question, but it sounds.
Yeah, I know, it sounds crazy. When you guys see the film, you understand, yeah.
yeah, I've been asked about the monkey. I've talked about the monkey so much on tour. That is the most sort of thoughtful, serious version of a monkey question
I am
ever the entire time.
I am a serious host, Fred.
Yeah, I can tell.
I'm not going to ask you any fun questions. I love I stumped you on that one. That's good.
I want to get to the point of what we're all talking about, of actually responding to what you're putting out there. I'll tell you something different than I've said before, which
Thank you
is a monkey is always going to be impulsive. I did do training with her beforehand, so you get comfortable with each other. I'd feed her and do certain things so that you create some kind of bond. But at the end of the day, a monkey is impulsive, and this character is impulsive. So in some ways, there's a cheat code on your right shoulder. In that sense, I think there's a reason that my guy feels so close and connected to that creature. But every day was still different.
Did the monkey get comfortable with you? I mean, where he would just sit, or she?
Well, character's he, but she, the monkey actress, she. And
we love good pronoun education right now. They? Are they?
And no, actually, you know what happened was we took that big break during the strike, and after the strike was resolved, we came back, and I will say, she was a lot more comfortable that time around. Those first scenes that we did pre-strike, she was jumpier, and she would sometimes leave during, we'd start a scene with her, we'd finish a scene without her, and but when we came back, I felt she was a lot more comfortable, and
She read her contract.
exactly.
The monkey has some rights. Yeah. The monkey got a raise.
Exactly.
Well, I want to lean more into that, though, as well. And thank you for allowing me to go on this journey with you. Because the whole time I was thinking, I was like, how is this brother up here with this monkey still performing the way that you were performing? And I thought your role, as much as it was verbal, it was part physical, right? In particular, the scene where you're Denzel's character finds you underneath the table. Talk to us about how you thought about the physicality and how you use that to bring out the manic.
Well, he's sick. He's suffering from a cocktail of issues. One of the things is emperors at that time would drink. You know, they were the only people that had some of the only people that had access to the water that came through the pipes, but they didn't know that they were being poisoned by that water. It was lead poisoning, and their level of privilege and fanciness and their kind of separated world was also one that had its own sickness. So I think Ridley latched on to that idea and metaphor, and all of the stuff underneath, the makeup and the intense blush and all those things was also kinds of sickness. I think though at the end of the day, as we're talking about, it's hard to put into words exactly what you're coming with, because I mean you do all your research, you work so hard beforehand, but at the end of the day it doesn't matter. That is only the entry, that's the price of admission. Then what's exciting is what actually surprises you and happens, and playing someone that's that sick and mad, I think I wanted to surprise myself. You can't get ahead of yourself.
Yeah. Connie, I want to come to you because Fred, you just let me. I'm thinking about, you were talking about like the lead and rich and poor, and I'm thinking about classism, right? I'm thinking about we have someone here from Flint, and I'm thinking about the lead pipes and Flint.
Half my family's from Flint. Yeah. My mother's side.
Michiganders in the house.
They all gone, but I mean,
I feel like the timing of this film, clearly it was made, before 2024, right? Like, do you feel there's a difference in what Gladiator I was moderating versus what Gladiator II is moderating in terms of social discourse and social constructs, without getting too specific into anything?
I mean, you see it really clearly when you see the Rome that Ridley has built this time around. It's more extreme. The palaces are bigger and more sort of like, there's a lot of vulgarity. There's the first Rome was very gold and copper, just very beautiful. And this time around, you see like a lot of garishness. You also see a lot of like homeless people huddling at every entrance to every palace. You have the bread riots that the emperors end up having to ride through. You're feeling underneath this whole sort of like prison that Rome has become. You feel like a seething discontent. And so that is a very different Rome, because Rome in Gladiator I, when Gladiator I starts out, that Rome is literally the last emperor. Marcus Aurelius is the last emperor of this golden age, 80 years, 4 emperors of like just extraordinary expansion, and all of it built on like this code of behavior by the emperors. Now this code is gone. And there's nothing that has taken its place. And that is the Rome that Ridley has shown. And, it's incredible how much we normalize things in our society. Yeah. And I'm sure that for the Romans, it became normalized to have homeless people huddling in the entrances, just like it has become normal here now. I grew up in Denmark where I never saw a homeless person in my life. And so this appearance in our society of homelessness has been a very strange thing, and I still have not been able to normalize that for myself.
You just checked me just right now. I was listening to what you were saying, and honestly, Connie, I didn't even recognize the homeless that was there. To your point, it becomes so normalized that you see it. in particular here in the streets of New York City, right? That is why I love film so much and art in general, because it holds up the social construct. I think I've just been so used to seeing homelessness, so you become desensitized by it. And that is one of the dangers of how democracies fall, is when the people become desensitized by the atrocities that are happening around them. So thank you for highlighting that.
There's an incredible book called Rubicon that I've really written by the British historian called Tom Holland. Yeah. I really recommend it. It's an extraordinary book. And it really is a little bit like a distant mirror to ourselves today. And it's about the end of the Roman Republic. And it's really incredible to read about these opposing forces that are tearing Roman society apart. And it's very, very, very interesting to read.
Which is really what this film is really pulling out. Like these opposing forces, wanting to keep the power, wanting to give the power to it. I don't do jump ball questions, but I do want to do a jump ball question with this one for the cast. I usually like to have more poignant questions, but to what Connie was just saying about the scale of the scope, highlighting all these fractures as happening, do you think that is why this film felt like the pacing was so quick? There was a moment where I was sitting with a colleague and we actually took turns going to the bathroom. True story, Lisa Cortez, she can vouch for this. So when she would run, I would come back and let her know what she missed, right? And then when I would go, I would run back and she'd let me know what I missed. I've never experienced that in a film before, the pacing of 2 hours and 40 minutes, 2 hour and 36-minute runtime. Yeah. It flew by to the point where I did not want to do that. So if anyone can talk to me about the pacing, was the pacing intentional of this?
I think the pacing is reflective of where Ridley's at in his life. Ridley's not waiting around. Ridley, I think, is a deeply unsentimental filmmaker. So he's not, I think he's going as quickly as he can without leaving anything out. It's like one of the basic premises of like drama, where you learn about it in drama school. It's like, go as quickly as you can without leaving anything. It's like a broad comment, but I really feel, I don't know, maybe Connie will be able to speak to this better than I can, but you mentioned in interviews that you feel Ridley's got such an appetite for work and story that I think he's moving quickly through the stories because he's got an appetite and kind of veracity that he works with. I think that's my take on it.
I feel like he lets things live in your mind after the fact. Do you see what I'm saying? Like it's sort of like you put together all of the flour, the water, the salt, and the yeast, and then after you've done all of that, then there's a leavening process. And I feel that film, like that you've seen, it keeps on having this leavening process in your mind. You'll remember so many things after, notice so many things after. But in the meantime, he's got a dough to prepare.
That's true. Denzel, Fred, you want to take the jump ball on that one?
I think the entertainment of violence is something that concerns him as a filmmaker. I think the way that speed moves shocks me because you think you're at a big old show, you know, and then as soon as someone is killed, they're rendered insignificant. And to Connie's point, suddenly you're in the next scene thinking about what happened to that person. Yeah. Their death happened so fast, and I think it hopefully wakes us up in some sense to violence and how much we normalize and look away from it.
There was an extreme amount of violence the way that it was used, but I don't think that the violence was used in a very grotesque, just for purpose of shock and awe, but actually had meaning to having the grotesque violence that was associated with it. Denzel, and I'm saying I'm being wrapped for time pretty soon, so I think this may be one of my last questions, but I wanted to just talk about one of the scenes towards the end between you and Paul. I found was really fascinating, and I think this is maybe just my own personal privilege of being a fan of yours, Denzel, if I can get into your head a little bit. I love when you come onto the scene, is just you and one other actor, and you guys are just exchanging. I get so excited every time that moment happens on a film. So the notes I took down, and I'm gonna forgive me for paraphrasing. It was in the dark on my
Yes.
cell phone. But you guys are going back and forth, and I think Lucius, you were saying, "My will is my own. The strong strike down the weak. The dream is of an old man. You would not use me as as an instrument. This is not my destiny." Can you talk to me about how you two approach that scene, and what are you guys trying to convey in this moment when you're talking about will and destiny?
Go ahead.
You're trying to. I loved playing the scenes with Denzel because of the extraordinary actor that he is, but also because both characters, or my character's trying to hide from him. You know, I'm trying to express a certain thing, but not give him too much. I'm hiding the fact that I know what my bloodline is, but you're also coming up against a very intelligent character who's kind of sniffing around the seams of who Lucius is. But in terms of what it's like to work on it, it's you go in. I think at that point we'd started kind of loosely. We caught wind that Ridley doesn't do a lot of rehearsal, so we would kind of like get through the first like by ourselves. We go into the room and then you just
Hit it.
You go to work.
Yeah.
You go to work, and it's not. There's nothing kind of like. There wasn't actually anything overly complicated about that scene, which because it was in the cell, you could only get 4 cameras in, which to many other directors is like a big day
Too
for
more than
Ridley.
normal.
That's like a quiet day at the office.
Yeah.
But I don't know what. Yeah.
Acting is doing.
Yeah.
So you get in there and you do what you know. It's not talking about it. It's not. It's just doing, being, and doing. So it's really simple.
But I think that's the mark of a great actor when you make it look so simple, and it
Well, thank
seems
you.
much more.
It's
layered
simple
and
even if
big.
you're a bad actor.
Yeah.
You know, but you probably overcomplicate it. You know, one might, but I try to keep it simple, real simple.
Like I said, that simple theory that we learned in high school and grade school, right? Kiss it. Keep it simple, stupid.
Stupid, yeah.
Yeah. Well, I couldn't think of a more basic quote to end this amazing, incredible conversation. Thank you so much, Denzel, for that. Yeah. I had this whole dream of asking you that question to get your head, and you gave me kiss it, what I learned in 3rd grade. I won't forget you, Denzel. I won't ever forget you. Ladies and gentlemen, please give a warm applause for this incredible cast and for their time.
Where are you from?
I'm from Lansing, Michigan.
You're from Michigan. Oh, you
Lansing,
said that.
Michigan.
But where your people from?
My dad is from Virginia. My mom is from Georgia.
Oh, okay.
Why,
What part of
Denzel?
Virginia?
Tappahannock.
Okay. You ever heard of Farmville
Farmville? No.
or Dillwyn?
Doing no.
That's where my family's from, my father's side.
Are you saying we
506
cousins?
people.
Are you saying we cousins, Denzel? Are you saying we cousins?
Yeah, we are.
You heard it here first, man. Denzel's my cousin. What's up, Cuzzo?
Where you been?
Cuzzo in the building. Stand up, everybody. Once again, give it please warm applause for this amazing cast. Please make sure you see Gladiator 2. It is out now. You would not be disappointed. And rewind this interview back again. It will give so much more depth and context to the incredible actor you're about to see. So until next time, folks. Peace.